Yo, what's up guys, it's Byteskit again. So in front of me today is a M1 MacBook Air, which I bought for 300 euros, and today we're going to see how it's holding up in 2026. I'll compare it to my MacBook Pro from 2015, on which I made a video last year, to see if it's worth it if you're still in an old MacBook to upgrade to this one in 2026. But before we get started, I want to mention the price of these things in 2026. So on refurbished websites, you can find this laptop for $400 in USA, and if you live in Europe, you can find this thing for around 500 euros. And in used marketplaces, you should be able to find it for under 300. I have to admit, it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's still a very good deal for what you're getting. If you are unsure if this laptop is for you or not, keep watching this video. So let's start off with design. So this MacBook has this design where it's thick in the back and in the end it's very thin. You can have your own opinion on it. Some find it very comfortable to write on, but in my opinion it just looks kind of less premium compared to the Pro version of this laptop and the newer MacBook Airs. The body is completely made of aluminium, which provides a very sturdy and very premium feeling. And we don't even have to start with the hinge of these MacBooks. As you can see, you can just open it using one finger. On the left side of the MacBook, you can find two USB ports, and on the right side, you get the headphone jack. Now the ports might be a limiting factor for some people, especially if you use a lot of accessories with your laptop, but for me, it works just fine. Upon opening the MacBook, you're greeted with this magic keyboard, which is just miles better than the older butterfly keyboard. You also get a Touch ID with this MacBook, and you have a 13.3-inch big display. Now, if you're going to use this MacBook for editing photos or videos, it's a great display as it's very color accurate and it has a good color range. It also gets 400 nits bright, which is nice if you're planning to use it outside. Now, looks is just one thing, but if a laptop has a good build quality and looks nice but can't handle heavy tasks, it's of no use. So let's now test the performance of this MacBook. Now for battery, unless you're getting one of the newer MacBooks or a new ARM-based Windows laptop, which is very rare to find in this price range as it is still very new to the game, it's not going to get better than this MacBook. According to Apple, this MacBook should get 18 hours of battery life, at least when it was new. But on these used machines, as you can see, I have around 83% of battery health left. You should easily get 11 hours. So when it comes to battery, it's basically the best thing in this price range. You can't argue. This MacBook has 8-core CPU and a 7-core or 8-core GPU, depending on how much RAM your machine comes with. The RAM situation I'm gonna touch in just a second, but the CPU and GPU is plenty for coding, for editing, and basically all the things. Now, if you're a very heavy user of the tasks I just talked about, you might need a little bit more resources. But let's head into DaVinci Resolve and try to edit a 4K 60 10-bit log video and see how it performs. Alright, I have the footage here in Media Pool. I'm gonna just move into the timeline. As you can see, if I go into the project settings, you can see it's a 4K 60 timeline. Let's try to play it back without any adjustments or anything else. So as you can see, it's playing it back with its content 60 frames, no frame drops. I want to convert it to Rec 709 and put some adjustments in there, and let's see it afterwards. Alright, so I have converted this footage to Rec 709 and I also did some basic adjustments here. Okay, let's try to play it back now and see if it drops frames or not. Okay, you can see it's 46.5 frames now. By the way, this playback is in full resolution, so if I go to playback and timeline playback resolution, you can see it's full 4K 60, still very usable. And the last thing I want to test is the rendering time, so we will render this 4K 60 video and see how much time it takes and see if it gets warm because right now it is very cold, like I can't feel anything. Let's see if it gets warm during the rendering. Okay, the rendering is finished. The temperature is basically the same, and it took 14 seconds to render a 8-second 4K 60 10-bit log video. You can see it's not lagging at all, so it can handle such footages if you're trying to edit videos on this thing. Even Lightroom and Photoshop works just fine, very good on this laptop. Now, if you have got an iPhone or iPad and you're into the Apple ecosystem, this machine is going to work like a charm. You get all the great features from the recent macOS updates, like iPhone mirroring and using your iPad as an extended display, AirDrop, and all the other features. By the way, if you were asking yourself about the Apple Intelligence support, yes, it does support Apple Intelligence, as you can see here. So if you're into that, that's also a plus point. One limiting factor might be the storage, because this base model M1 MacBook Air only has 256 gigabytes of storage, and if you are editing big raw files, that might come a limiting factor, but you can use one of the Thunderbolt 3 USB ports to connect it to an external SSD, and the problem is solved. But what's not expandable and not replaceable is the RAM. The base model comes with only 8 gigs of RAM. Now, if you're coming from a typical Windows laptop, you must note that this RAM is not the same you're used to, as this is what Apple calls unified memory. It basically lives a lot closer, and because of that, a lot faster. And also Apple uses so-called swap memory. So if you go to Activity Manager and go to memory, you can see it's using around 204 megabytes of that memory right now, which means that it's using the internal SSD to cover up the RAM usage, the internal RAM count. So it's basically using the SSD as RAM. And because the RAM lives so close, the opening of apps is really so quick. I can literally fly through all of them, even though none of them were opened. You can see it's just so quick. There's literally no lag or stutters whatsoever. So that's a great plus point as well for the unified memory. Now, if you can find machines with 16 gigs of RAM, that is going to the best case scenario. As with the Plus RAM, you'll also get the 8-core GPU instead of the 7-core one. And if you're also coding very heavy, you'll need the extra RAM, trust me. Now, I will just mention some important points that you should know when buying this laptop or deciding between this one and the new M2 or the M3 MacBook Airs. So if you've decided to get this laptop, please take care of the display, because that thing is so expensive to replace. It costs more than the device. When I last checked on my local repair shop, it was about 700 euros, which I think they were trying to scam me. I don't know about the Apple official prices though, so just check that and make sure you take very good care of the display and the device altogether. If you're concerned about the updates, this machine should get 2 or so years of update, maybe even more if it gets a usual 6 to 7 year update, because this machine was released in 2020. But even after that, the apps should be supported for another 1 to 2 years. One another thing to note is this laptop only supports one external monitor. So if you have a lot of monitors on your desk and you're planning to connect this machine to that, you have to note that as well, and you might need to upgrade to the M2 MacBook Air. One last thing I want to say is that as a small YouTuber, it will really help me if you could like this video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I'm gonna try to read all of them. Take care and peace.